Hi, Jim Roddy here from the RSPA. Wanted to chat with you before we started today's pod to make sure that you've registered for Retail Now 2026, the Retail IT Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event. Join RSPA and Retail IT Channel leaders live and in person July 26th through the 28th in Las Vegas at the new Caesars Foreign Convention Center attached to Harrah's and the Link Hotels. With nearly 200 exhibiting organizations, Retail Now will be one-stop shopping for VARs and ISVs. And with an expected 1,600 or more attendees, it's the place for extreme industry connectivity. Across just 48 hours, you'll meet new partners and new solution providers who can accelerate the success of your business. If you're serious about the Retail IT Channel, you have to attend Retail Now 2026, again, July 26th through the 28th in Las Vegas. Retail Now is where the industry meets. For all the details and to register, visit the Retail Now website today at gorspa.org/retail now. That's gorspa.org/retail now. I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoy this episode featuring a Retail Now speaker. Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we talk with leaders in the Retail IT Channel about their leadership journeys and what they've learned along the way. In this episode, we'll talk with Kathy Durfee, the CEO and founder at TechHouse, a systems integrator and managed services provider headquartered in Bradenton, Florida. Prior to launching TechHouse, Kathy was a consultant at Accenture and a systems analyst at PepsiCo. Kathy's a member of the RSPA AI Advisory Group, and she'll be one of several channel industry experts presenting at Retail Now 2026, July 26th through the 28th in Las Vegas. Her breakout is titled Built to Bend, an AI Maturity Model for VAR and ISV Growth. Kathy, you and I have talked several times over the years. First time on the podcast. Welcome to the Trusted Advisor.
Thank you, Jim. I'm glad to be here.
No, glad to have you here. So can you please tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about the early days of TechHouse? I'm curious, what
Yes.
was the company's focus when you first founded it? And then where do you focus today?
Yeah, absolutely. When I heard you do the introduction, it made me smile a bit because it sounds like I'm a tech person that came from tech. So, origin stories are always good for us founders. So, I'll just say how I got started. When I was at university, in my junior year, they said, hey, I was a big state university. They called me and I'm like, wow, did I get in trouble? They're like, no, you need to declare a major. I'm like, oh, how do you do that? So they looked at all my courses and they said mostly you could get a chemistry major on time because that's what I really enjoyed. So I got in the chemistry program at that point, finished up the major, discovered a crystal, loved it, got a full ride to the PhD program and dropped out after an argument with my professor because I was 20 or whatever. And then went and got a master's in English Lit. And at that point, I needed work and couldn't find it. And Accenture, well, I was working minimum wage at a startup. Accenture would teach you how to do tech if you had math and science background. So that's how I got into tech. So I pivoted to tech. And then when my first child was born, she was sick. And after 4 weeks of maternity leave, my current employer said I had to come back to the office, but she wasn't stable yet. So I requested to work from home. They said they had a no work from home policy. So I had to, go back to work or give up my child, I guess.
Wow.
So I lost my job. And my sister said to me, look, tech, you need to be home, create a business, call it Tech House and go make some money. So that was very good advice. And that's how Tech House got started. So Tech House's mission from the beginning has been to make sure that people can make the most of their talents, right? If you have talents and you want to go make things happen, you should be able to do that. And that's what our mission is. I started out in the enterprise as customers like FedEx and Pepsi and things like that, because that's where my contacts were. When you're in that space, and I know there are a lot of people very good at it, but when you're in that space, you're definitely more than an arm's length from the person benefiting from what you're doing. And that wasn't the right fit for us and our mission. So we are small mid business only. So we're talking with people who are personally affected by the work that we're doing. And our goal is to make sure that tech and process improvement, that they are not obstacles getting in the way, but that they help them accelerate to get their goals. So that's why we exist.
Interesting. Thank you for that. So first, I'm sorry you went through having to make that choice, right, about going back to work
Yeah.
or taking care
So
of your child.
It was a long
I'm
time
guessing that was
ago.
really formative for you, right, as a business leader, if I understand that correctly.
100%. And here's the funny thing, about 15 or 20 years after that, one of my employees got sick and had a back issue and couldn't sit up for an extended period of time. By then, I had moved us into office space because that seemed like what real businesses do. You know, you have an office and a nice chair and all that.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the systems in place for him to work from home, which was just ridiculous. And so we started to make that shift, but there's so much about, as we all know, so much about remote work that's not just the tools. Like, how do you do your reporting? How do you define your deliverables? What is a good performance? All that. And we didn't have it in place, sadly. So we did the best we could, and then he found another employer who's better able to provide him opportunity while he was, I guess, having to work from that position. So ironically, I did not keep that going as much as I would have liked, but now I would say we're definitely 100% there.
Got it. And how many employees do you have today?
Right now we're at 10.
At 10
And then we
employees.
augment, yeah, then we augment with partners. I say
Got
my
it.
goal is to build a community, not a kingdom. And in an ideal world, we're scaling through B2B partners. That's how we want to scale. Yeah, that's my goal. Because if our goal is for as many small businesses as possible to be successful and reach their goals, then like, why am I trying to build a big business? That makes no sense. What I should build is a business with big impact, and that big impact through partners. That's what we're trying to do.
Interesting. You remind me of a book that we've talked about in the podcast here before called Small Giants. And it talks about small companies who don't have some desire to be scale and enterprise, but they want to have a big impact. One other question about your origin story. I'm just curious. So when your sister said, hey, go start your own business,
Yeah.
like, did you have a history in your family of other folks who had their own business, or did you know other
Well,
business owners, or were you just like diving into the pool without knowing how deep it was?
it's great how you asked that question. So I can tell you that when my grandfather came to the US, he started with a fruit cart. So I guess in that sense, yes, but I'm also from a culture and tradition where ideally women don't work, and especially mothers don't work. So no, I would not say that it was, as a matter of fact, there was a lot of intense conversations about this not being a good idea from the family perspective. But I will say I was so lucky because I had access to like a lot of, I signed up for, at that time, Harvard Business Review was like a way to learn things. So I signed up
Yeah.
for that and read and I went to the library. I know this is a long time ago. I read every book I could find on anything business related, which I came to realize business is a very broad term. So a lot of it was not really relevant, but I didn't know. So I was just like reading all these books about accounting and production efficiency and just trying to learn everything I could about it. And also listen to as many people as possible about what their job was and what they did so that I could figure out as much as I could. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And so it's interesting. You went from, so I started my own business when I was 23, had that for 5.5
Okay.
years. I didn't know, anything of what I was getting into.
Yes.
Like I only had 6 grand in the bank. I thought that's plenty, to get a business going. But I
Right.
was an English major, just like you said, you got your master's in English lit, and that ties into my next question. I want to talk about your unique, and it seems like very intentional messaging. So a lot
Yeah.
of solution providers, they're really loud on the tech aspect of their business, but you're overt on your website with phrases like friendly experts, a partner that listens,
Yes.
easy to work with, we meet you where you are. And so I'm
Yes.
curious if you can do a deep dive into like why do you emphasize that messaging? And then also how do you as a leader ensure that your entire organization lives up to that standard? It's not just some words on a website.
Okay, that's a lot. So I'm going to
Sure,
try and tackle the first part. I might need you to come back with some of the question.
that's fine.
Okay, so the first part of the question was why are you leaning in so heavily to like friendly experts and that as opposed to co-pilot expert or something like that?
Yeah.
So the way I would answer that is, as I mentioned, we're mission based. And I want to qualify, we do want to scale. Like we want every single small business on the planet to be able to be successful. So like, yes, we want to scale, but we want to scale through partners. We're not trying to build a kingdom. But to that point, every business is different. And I think we see on our teams, every human is different. So the needs are different. And if we're really going to empower organizations and people to reach their goal, not the goal we have for them, then we have to be able to listen and hear what the heck what that goal is, and try to meet it. We do not have, and I've never had, and I don't, well, if I have had it, I apologize somewhere in the past, I don't remember, but I don't like the idea of silver, bronze, platinum plans, pick a plan. And to me, that sounds very Henry Ford. like the industrial age, and you can have any car you want as long as it's black.
Hmm.
Well, we're not in the industrial age. I don't want to widgetize to efficiency. That's not what I'm trying to get to here. I'm trying to make sure that every human being can make the most of their talents. Well, and whatever small part we can play in that. If that's true, then you have to be able to handle differentiation and to the point of individual differentiation. To do that, we have to listen. To listen, we have to really sincerely care about the individual and the individuals in that organization. Doesn't mean we'll always get it right by any means, but at least that's our intent and that's our go-to, is that individual approach. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm curious, how do you individualize and still manage
Mhm.
a business at the same time?
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
seems like it could be really, really, you're not making pizza, right? It's not like just put a little bit
Right.
more pepperoni
Right.
on it. So talk about
Instead,
that. Yeah.
yeah, instead of pizza, think Legos.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you know what all your Legos are, you can build all kinds of amazing things with Legos. I'm not an affiliate partner of Legos.
Not officially endorsed by Lego, but okay. I get
Yeah.
that. So you're using Lego pieces and it just,
Yes.
you can build and design what they want. So,
We only work in a certain segment of the market. We specialize in certain platforms where we are really good at what we do. We've done many of them many times over many years, and we've packaged that unit. Oh, that unit takes this, and that unit takes that. So we know that. But who are you and what are you trying to achieve? I think I'll take this unit and I'll
yeah.
take this unit and maybe a little bit of special sauce, and here you go. This is addressing your specific risk tolerance or growth goals or what you're trying to achieve.
Interesting. Thank you for that. And then to the second part of my question. So as a leader, right, you've got an organization of 10
Yes.
employees. How do you make sure that everybody lives up to that standard about listening and being friendly and meeting where they are? How do you do that?
I think it happens through the entire employee journey. So it begins in the hiring process. With the hiring process, we have everybody we hire goes through the same questions. Everybody, doesn't matter whatever your job is, it's the same questions on the first set of interviews. And then we have some, specific later for job, whatever. But those questions, seven of them, not all of them, but seven of them are entirely based on our mission. And what we ask you to do, and we tell you up front so you can think about it before the meeting, we ask you to give us a specific example from your life that demonstrates how you see or how you feel about that concept. And then we hear what you think. So our goal is that people who join are as motivated as we are to do what we want to do. So if so motivation, I think, is really important if you're going to need to change. And we all have to grow and change. So that motivation is there. So now you have a bunch of motivated people who may not be equipped to do everything you want yet, but or that they want to be doing, but they're there and they're motivated. And I'm saying this coming off of our semi-annual, twice a year we meet in a retreat where we all come in person and we do these types of things. And so if we're there, then there are some baseline tools we give everybody, one of which is creative problem solving. Every person, regardless of your job, takes training in creative problem solving. They understand the difference between like a problem and something that's just something you have to deal with that's not solvable, what types of questions you ask, all of that like inquisitive thought process that you would consider as discovery. Everybody on our team goes through that training. So that sets a culture. We have another phrase called no jerks allowed.
Hmm.
So everyone has to be treated with respect in the company. One of my kids has a t-shirt that says, be nice, everybody's going through something. And I would say that's part of our culture. Like, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but a culture of respect internally and externally. And we ask the same of our customers clearly. If your server's down, you're not going to be your best. We get
Yeah.
it. We don't even do servers anymore. It's all cloud, but still,
Yeah.
we get that. But in general, we're looking for that. So I think those are some of the components.
Got it. So you just make sure, like directionally, philosophically, you're aligned with these folks. You don't have to say, you don't have to convince somebody to be a good listener. They've shown that they have a history of being a good listener, if I'm understanding correctly.
And they need the tools to listen well. Critical
Yeah.
thinking gives you tools. We have another curriculum on just asking questions. Like how do
Okay.
you, like what, because it's training. And I will say that those types of skills are really important, I think, in the age of intelligence or artificial intelligence as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have to ask to dig deeper because it's interesting. What you're
Yeah.
talking about is fairly sophisticated inside of a business, and somebody might
Mhm.
think like, how do you do that with only 10 employees? So are you
Oh,
able to share, like, how did you build that? Like, I don't talk to many 10 employee and under tech, companies who have a curriculum for ongoing
oh,
training. How did you put that together?
I don't know. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Like, is it
Uh,
just over time by pieces?
so
Is it something you bought off a shelf?
Oh,
If
no,
you
no,
can talk
no,
about
no, no,
that.
no. We built it ourselves for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we built it ourselves. So the way we handle gaps in our company when we don't do things well, which we're always learning, but the way we handle gaps is when a gap is identified, we figure out what we need to do to fix the gap and we build that. So the creative problem solving came up years ago when somebody was discussing a problem with a customer and didn't do a good job of requirements and discovery. So we built the creative problem solving curriculum so everybody could do that. Um, yeah, I think that's how it just organic. It doesn't feel sophisticated to me. It feels sort of baseline. I think most organizations have SOPs that they build
Hmm.
themselves for key processes. I would think of it
Yeah.
like an SOP, but it's a thought SOP.
Got it. I used to work for a couple of brothers. It was in the publishing industry, the tech publishing industry, and people would marvel at how good how the systems and everything that they had. And people would say, like, "How did you do this?" And they used to joke, like, they built their business talking people down off telephone poles. Oh my gosh, we're out of money. They're cutting off our electricity. Go out there and talk them down. Come on, come on, come on. But what they did was they would make mistakes and say, "What did we learn from that?" They would write it down to see
Yes.
how they could do better. And they said, you just do that enough, you end up building something. And that's almost what it sounds like what yours was. It was organic. It wasn't like some specially designed thing, but over time, it's the lessons you've learned and you share that with your team, if I'm understanding correctly.
I love everything you said except the very end. It's the lessons we've learned that our
Okay.
team has created solutions for. So we
Okay.
meet in person for 2 to 3 days twice a year. We meet in person every other quarter for a day. And then we meet once a month. In each of those, we're not talking actually, it's more involved. We can talk about it later in the podcast if you want. But
Hmm.
the outcome of each of those is improvement by the team for the team.
I love
Yeah.
it. Very good. Thank you for that.
Okay.
And so another way that you're different from the typical RSP member is you're not just solely focused on one or two verticals like retail, hospitality, grocery. Can you talk about your approach that way, where you're more horizontal, but you're, specializing in terms of what you're providing? Can you talk about that business model, that approach?
Yes, and I'm going to do a slight nod to the talk I'm going to be doing by using some of the terms from the talk.
Perfect.
So when I do the talk, I'm going to talk about rules, tools, and you. And rules are things that are like actual rules, like mathematics. You go look at your P&L and L and you have to subtract expense from revenue. Like that's the way it works, and income comes out at the bottom. And that's not a suggestion, that's like something you have to do. That's a rule. And then a tool helps you get it done. It could be a standard operating procedure, somebody's guideline, a book you read. All these things help you get it done. And then you is like who you are and what's important to you. And I'm so sorry, Jim, I started talking. Could you just repeat your question again? Because I just say your question one more
No,
time.
it's because you're not focused on one vertical
Yes, thank
market
you.
and that. Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Hmm.
So I would say that when I first entered this industry, I thought everything was a rule that I had to learn. I told you I read everything I could read. There's all these rules. I'm a math science person. Well, kind of English too, but well, English has grammar. Like we have rules and you
Sure.
follow
Yeah.
the rules. So I thought everything was a rule. But what I realized is like there are things that are rules, but then there are guidelines. And you have to think about like what's the guideline trying to get at?
Yeah.
I think what the industry specific guideline is trying to get at is get really good at something and know it really well so you can provide value to people. I think that's what the guideline is trying to get at. For us, what we know really well is how to like figure out problems, the technical platforms we've chosen to specialize in, which I could describe at some point, but we chose a certain platform. We're really good at that. We know it well. We're embedded in it. And so we can apply that. And then through our partners, we bring in the expertise that needs to complement that. So I think industry vertical is a great choice for somebody with industry vertical focus. It's not the right choice for us. I think focus is a rule, industry focus is a guideline.
Interesting. Yes, you've got to focus on something, but it doesn't necessarily
Right.
have to be the vertical, is the way you put
Yeah.
that. Got
Yeah.
it. I also do like what you're saying about rules versus guidelines. When I was first named CEO here at the RSPA, the first meeting that I had with the leadership team was about critical thinking that you referred to. And it was along the lines of like, there are some hard and fast rules that you don't have to look up and really discuss, right? Like you wear shoes at a trade show, right? You can't walk around barefoot, at a trade show. But then there's a lot of things you're like, well, how do we tackle this? And so it's if you follow the steps of critical thinking, that's what's important. And that's how you can really get a team that approaches things. If you have the same philosophy and then they're gathering the data, they can go move forward from that. But to your point, a lot of times people just think if I follow the rules and then they try to cram it in as the world changes around them and the rules just don't keep pace. I guess, is that kind of how you see it as well? And why it's so important to have guidelines and critical thinking to innovate in this changing industry?
Yeah, I would say to innovate and to survive.
Okay.
So I'll give two examples really quick.
Please.
One is when the Great Recession hit, I had a line of credit that I had never used before because there was what I thought a rule was everyone should have a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk through it more at the talk, but I burned through that thing when the recession first hit because I thought, oh, well, we'll come out of this. But we didn't. And it took me forever, a long time to pay back that line of credit.
Yeah.
So I realized that getting a line of credit is a guideline. And if you're me and you have that in front of you, you'll probably burn that thing down when you shouldn't. So that is not a rule. Another example was I was fortunate, maybe we were 10 years in or so, and somebody offered to buy the company. And a lot of the companies like ours in the area were being bought by this one that was, combining companies. So I went to visit them at their office, and they were just they had all kinds of money. And they were building out this beautiful, like, top floor office, downtown Orlando, just amazing. And it had parquet floors and this beautiful table. And I was there to sign the paperwork. And when I got there, back then you would actually go in person, sign papers. So I got there to sign the paperwork, and I looked around, and there were no outlets for network cabling anywhere in the room. This was a long time ago. And I said, so, like, do you have wireless? Like, how would I connect? They're like, what? I'm like, well, how would I connect my computer if I'm in a meeting in this room? They're like, oh, crap. Well, they were at the point where they were finishing the room, and they didn't have that person in the discussion to be prepared. So I walked out, did the long drive back home, told my husband I changed my mind because I thought if these guys aren't aware enough of our industry to have internet, like network connectivity in their main conference room, they may not really get our industry.
Yeah.
So that was a case where I didn't follow the rule, which was, hey, somebody with a lot of money offers you a lot of money. That's probably a good thing. But it was more of a guideline that wasn't. Yeah. So.
Right, like it's the American dream now. The new American dream is the old American dream was build up a business, hand it off to your kids. The new American dream is build up a business, sell it off, and then go do nothing. Yeah.
So I want to say no. I prefer the former. I applaud everyone who does not sell off their business unless you're like selling it to your employees or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Now, there's like what the media portrays is what the American dream is, right? We hold up all these entrepreneurs who, sell off and they're, building their own island or something of that nature. So,
like, why? I don't get that. Like, I don't know. I guess everyone has their thing, but that's not my thing.
Yes. Very good. Well, so you've shared a couple experiences from early in your career. I'm curious if you can share maybe one that really stood out to you that shaped you as a leader, right? Something that might have happened a long time ago, but really stuck with you and it influences how you lead your team and how you interact with other folks. Can you share that, Kathy?
Well, how I interact with my team and others. So this is very present for me right now. One thing that I've been working on, as evidenced by this podcast, thank you for being here and listening, people, is to be out and talking to people. Like probably some people in the audience, I would love to sit on a sofa and read a book, but also I'm trying to, be out in front of people. And there's a friend of mine years ago who I felt was so brave. She's such a brave person. She had I think maybe 3 or 4 businesses. She exited 3 of them with a ton of money, not in this order, and she went bankrupt on one of them. And she still kept making businesses because for her, the success was going out there, giving it a go. Like success was the try, not to your point earlier, not the fact that she sold it, which is of course successful. But she kept going. And even the bankruptcy didn't stop her, and she came out and she ended up doing really well in another venture. So I always admired sort of that practical bravery where she wasn't set back. She just kind of kept her goal in mind and she went after her goal, and she would pivot when she needed to pivot. And I try to keep our mission in mind and pivot when we need to pivot. Yeah.
Interesting. I like that phrase you said, practical bravery. It sounds like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not foolhardiness, right? Like you just don't go
Mm.
in, eyes closed. But I guess talk about how do you apply practical bravery uh, as a leader?
Okay. I know there's a lot of talk on what does it mean to be a leader these days. So I think there's lots of different ways to lead. So I'll just speak to my way to lead.
Yeah.
And I respect there are many different ways to lead. But my way to lead, I would say, is my goal is to ensure everybody on my team and everybody who hears me has an opportunity to make the most of their talents, whatever that might be. So practical bravery means you have me sitting here on a podcast, I would say is practical bravery. I personally believe that it doesn't take a lot of strength to hide your vulnerabilities. Like that's not strength. Strength is being able to be out there when it's hard to be out there. Strength is keeping in mind other when you're full of your own issues. So you
Hmm.
want to just, okay, I get it. I have challenges, but as a leader, like at that retreat, so I had something on my mind at the retreat, but that's not their problem. Now, if it informs what they need to do, great. I need to find
Yeah.
a leaderly way to present it, but otherwise, it's how I show up, and being brave to show up the way I need to show up. And also, I'm sure some of you relate to this, being brave to make those choices. Like, was what, 2 years ago or so? I'm like, okay, guys, AI is something we're going after. And I will tell you, not everyone agreed with me at that time, for sure. But
Hmm.
that's also, I think, practical bravery. But I can't just say because of my intuition. I say my intuition and these stats or these numbers or this strategy or some basis for that. Yeah.
Got it. Yes, your gut feel might take you in a direction, but you also want to validate it with folks and data
Yes.
and things of that nature.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
interesting. I like that. Well, I'm going to ask you to be brave before we take a quick commercial break and ask you a tough question about maybe
Mm.
a mistake that you made as a leader and what you learned from it. Again, it can be recent. This could be a long time ago. It could be a colossal disaster. It could just be where you fell short of your standards. Can you share with our listeners and me a mistake that you made as a leader?
I've made so many mistakes. So many mistakes. I don't know where to start. I'd say one of the big mistakes was the drawdown on that credit. That was a huge mistake. I would never do that again. Um, Another mistake was there was a point in time when I thought I could help somebody early in my career. I thought, oh, I can help an employee overcome a challenge, or I can help a customer overcome a challenge. And now I don't really use those terms in that way anymore. I would say we try to create opportunities so people can help themselves. Otherwise, the accountability gets blurry. And at the end of the day, first of all, who's to say I'm the right person to help? And secondly, yeah, that lack of they need to be able to be making the choices that are right for them. I firmly believe in that now. I don't think it's that I didn't believe in it before, but I didn't see it as clearly before. Yeah.
Got it.
Is that
So
too
can
vague or did that make sense?
No, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Can you talk about the practical application? It sounds
Yeah.
like we just recently had a community meeting. Dr. Gail Burgos from Paytech Women led, and it was about mentoring. And somebody
Yeah.
asked her, like, what's the first step for mentoring? And hers was like, the
Shut up.
will of the mentee to want to be mentored, right? Like, if you don't have
Yes.
somebody who wants to take that first step, then you're just like kind of dragging them up the hill. It sounds like am I correct? That's kind of a degree to what you're talking about. Like, they've got to help themselves. They can't just be somebody carrying them up the hill, if I'm understanding.
I do agree that they have to want to help themselves, although your job may be to help them see that they want to help themselves. But
Okay.
mostly, I think your job is to listen and discern what could you say that could help them see something they're not seeing, or what could you say that could help them feel a motivation they didn't know that they had. Yeah, I think it's opening doors. Maybe then they can walk through it.
And you said you haven't always felt this way.
Mhm.
So talk about that.
No.
Like, yeah, talk about that learning.
Yeah, I would say that I think one of the things I underestimated when I started my company was how easy it was for me to acquire new skills. I didn't see that or understand that, so I expected it from my team. And if my team wasn't able to, I thought, oh, that's kind of odd. Here, let me show you how, right? Because it seemed kind of simple and easy to me. But I think the step that I was missing is I needed them to encounter, it's kind of like raising kids in a way. I don't mean to that adults are children, but in raising children, you realize I can't show them everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to be there for them. So I think that's kind of like that. I can't show someone how to do everything. Sometimes I have to let them struggle, sort it out, but they know I'm here. I'm not like throwing them out to the sharks.
Yes.
And I'm giving them the tools they need. They just have to kind of find their way. Yeah.
Interesting. So I worked in an office park. I was down the hallway from a psychotherapist. And so when she and I would start to talk, I'd be like, I don't know anything about psychotherapy. And she'd be like, I don't know anything about business whatsoever. But as we would converse from time to time about like, what are you doing? What did you do last week? All that kind of stuff from a work standpoint, we're like, we actually do a lot of the same things, or we should be doing, right? Because the business world is about helping people get to a certain place. And then her work as a psychotherapist was helping people get to a certain place. Like you don't go do it for them. Yeah.
It's a place they're deciding on.
Yes.
Of course, in business, it has to be in alignment with where we want to go, which gets back to that hiring choice part.
Yes.
But yeah, they have to want to be there. Yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, our job had more spreadsheets than the psychotherapist did, but still, it was when it came down to it, it was the one-on-one, and like you just said, helping people get to where they wanted to go and needed to go. So
yeah,
and it sounds like you've learned that as well. Like I was the one who said to her, like, I don't know anything about psychotherapy, but then the more we talked, it's like there's a lot more crossover. It sounds like you've realized that there's a lot of crossover with what you do.
Yeah, 100%. I think as leaders, our goal is to make it possible for people to achieve, whether it's our customers and also in our communities. We do that in our communities, right? We maybe speak in our communities or we sponsor things because we're trying to make it possible for people to do what they want to go do. I bet almost everybody listening has some nonprofit in their community that they contribute to financially, so those people can go do what they do. You're opening the door for them to do that.
Excellent. Very good. Well, we're going to pause here to let our listeners and viewers know about the Retail Solution Providers Association. RSPA is North America's largest community of retail technology VARs, software providers, managed services providers, vendors, and distributors in the retail, restaurant, and grocery verticals. To accelerate your success through an RSPA membership, email membership@gorspa.org. Also, we want to say thanks to these channel-focused companies who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our gold sponsors are Blue Star, CoCard, Epson, Global Payments, and ScanSource. And then finally, want to make sure everybody knows to be sure to register for Retail Now 2026, the Retail IT Channel's #1 trade show, education conference, and networking event. This year's event is July 26th through 28th at the new Caesars Forum Conference Center in Las Vegas. For more information, visit gorsp.org/Retail Now. Retail Now is where the industry meets, and we'll be talking a little bit more about Retail Now in a bit. I'm curious, have you been to the new Caesars Forum Conference Center that was built like in 2020? I don't know if you've been to that new facility yet.
I don't think I have, but I heard you on a prior podcast explaining it's not this and it's not a shopping center and it's so yes. Oh, that's pretty funny. I have to go look it up, but I haven't looked it up yet.
It is not Caesars Palace. It is not the Forum at Caesars Palace. It's Caesars Forum. Why they called it that, I don't know why. The only more confusing thing is if they called it Little Caesars Conference Center, then you'd be like, is there pizza there or anything like that? So it's a beautiful, brand new conference center. You and I have been to a lot of events over the years. That's where you and I met, was one down in Fort Lauderdale. And a lot of them are like your typical looking. This is a very bright, new, modern looking facility. So we're
looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. So are we. So a few more questions before I ask about your presentation at Retail Now. You said a lot of things that I think I could take a shot at describing your leadership style, but I'm curious if you could put into your words, how do you describe your leadership style? What are some actions that you take when engaging with your team to reinforce that approach?
Right. This is such a great question. So I was trying to think leadership style, right? It's hard to put a name on that. I would say that my approach to leadership, as we talked about, is to get the tools and processes available to people, to empower them not just to execute, but to be able to think about what needs to get done, to empower them to solve problems that come up, and to make sure they have a good guiding North Star on where they're headed. So if we can have a really great North Star, hey, this is where we're all going, and everyone has the tools and skills to get where they need to go, and we have, relationships with the other people on the teams, we can, augment each other, then I'm doing my job as a leader. That said, I was at I'm all about community events. I was at a community event recently of some stage 2 CEOs, and someone said to me, what you don't realize, Kathy, is part of your role as a leader is the innovation you're doing in your company. And when you're not there, who's going to take that over? So I've been thinking lately, innovation might be part of that also, that I haven't really, it might be me repeating the mistake I had 20 years ago of underestimating or expecting what I shouldn't be, was unfair to expect. And so I might have that sort of innovation component also as part of my leadership that I have to figure out, but I don't have that all sorted yet.
Got it. I'm actually reading a book right now. They sent me 2 copies, so I still have one on my shelf here and one at home. Sidney Finkelstein, Why Smart Executives Fail and How You Can Learn from Their Mistakes. And I know it's like, sounds like a really inspiring book, but it talks about, these businesses that fail and what they learned. And one phrase in there that I was just reading last night, it's funny you bring up innovation. It said, innovative companies have innovative CEOs, right? Like you can't be a not innovative CEO and have an innovative company. That's kind of what it sounds like you're saying you're learning.
It makes you think of Apple a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
they tried to shift and it was hard for them. Clearly, we're not Apple. But yeah, I think I'm curious to see whether or not innovation like that can be an acquired skill, or to what degree it can be an acquired skill, like some of the other skills and reasoning and decision making. Reasoning and decision making works if you have the right environment and you have good processes and tools and training, and you can acquire the skill and you're motivated. So maybe innovations like that, but I don't know yet. Oh, I should read her book. You can send me the second one if you want.
Oh, sure, I should. Yeah, I mean, I ordered it from Amazon and 2 showed up. So yeah, I'll make a note. I'll make sure I send my Sidney Finkelstein copy to you. Happy to do that.
Me with a conference.
Oh, we'll do that. Yes, we'll take a picture together when I'm me giving you the book at Retail Now. So. But along those lines, it seems like I would just say, just because I've peered into a lot of businesses, the source of innovation isn't staring at the ceiling tiles and going, Eureka, I've got it. It is asking questions, it's listening, and then it's putting that together and applying it to your business. So that would be my take. Like you said, if I'm not sure if I'm training on it, seems like you are. Like those are the root of it. It's nothing fancier than that. That's, I guess, my 2 cents, if that matters.
I think that's accurate, and I would throw into the mix that there's a lot of outside input. We all have our hobbies. I have hobbies, and I think that external outside of work informs work.
Yes.
Like the more diversity of thought and perspective and stuff that happens, I think then it's easier to innovate or apply something from outside the industry to the industry. Maybe it's a way to think of it.
I agree 100%. You can see in the background, for those watching on YouTube, I'm a big sports fan, and a lot of it I draw. I see what's
successful. You like sports?
Basketball kids. So kind of, and if I would pivot the camera the other way, you'd see even more jerseys and everything hanging up in my office here. So let's talk in the few minutes we have left. Who are some leaders that you look up to as mentors and have helped you shape your leadership approach? And so you might want to name names here, but I'm sure our audience isn't just looking for the names, but really, what did they say or do that has had a lasting impact on you?
So this is an area I don't perform well from a single mentor perspective. That's not, I will say when I first started my company and I was trying so hard to learn things, I did reach out to a lot of, I'll say like the standard sources of mentors, the programs that bring mentors to small business. Yeah. At that time, most of those mentors came out of the enterprise and they were applying enterprise principles to, a small organically grown business, and they were not good outcomes. I think from that, I got pretty skittish of the idea of there's somebody out there that has the answer, kind of that rules tools, it's coming in again. So rather for me, the way that I learn best is by speaking with other people. I'm in a number of different CEO groups, industry, non-industry. I find that to be incredibly helpful. Being able to be on the advisory board, not meant to be just a plug, but really the reality is I get to meet with other people who are trying to do what I'm trying to do. And I don't think any of us have the exact full answer, but boy, you sure accelerate your thought process. You find holes in what you were thinking about. And usually in those settings, everyone's a pretty active learner. They're open to discussing possibilities. So for me, I think that's it. The other side of mentor is sort of role model, I would say, someone I would like to be like. And there are people like that in history that I admire, that have traits that I would like to continue to exhibit. My sister gave me a little glass I don't know, a statue, like a little rectangle glass thing that's on my desk. And it says, none of us can do great things, only small things with great love. It was by Mother Teresa. Because sometimes you feel like, gosh, there's so much that needs to be done in the world. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
What?
So say that quote again.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
it says along the lines of, no one can do great things. No one person can do
Yeah.
great things. You can only do many small things with great love. So the idea is, maybe you don't have to be a $50 million a year company to be successful or 500 million. I have a funny story about that too.
Okay.
But but if what you're doing is having impact, if impact is important to you, it is important to me. So if it's having impact, then do that a lot. And I think that's where my communities versus kingdom kind of thing comes into. I've grown to 15, 18 people before, and then I was thinking to myself, there's a company like marketing. I had a few people in marketing. Well, why am I building out a marketing department? Should I just hire a marketing company? Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing that? I'm not trying to be a marketing expert. So like, why is that? So I decided to go with a marketing company, and yeah, that's that piece. So
Interesting. You said you had a funny story. I have a follow up on
okay,
Mother
yeah.
Teresa, but said you have a funny story about 5
Yeah,
million,
it's,
50
it's
million.
kind of a mentor thing also, just real quick, is that I was at a conference of people who won awards from a million up to I think 100 million in business, founder entrepreneurs. And you don't know who's who, you're just sitting at all these tables. It's an amazing conference. It's a great conference. And I go back every year. So I'm sitting at this table and prior, about 6 months prior, I was in an accelerator. And in the accelerator, somebody said, well, what's your revenue goal? And I said, for this year, I said 3 million. And they're like, okay, well, why not 30 million? I thought, 30 million? Me?
Hmm.
And then they're like, well, why are you saying three? Why not 30? What's the difference? I thought, okay, all right, maybe I should think about 30, but it felt kind of scary. So I'm sitting at the table, maybe 6 months later or so, and the woman's next to me, and she says, so what's your revenue goal? I don't know why people say this at conferences. This is a big thing.
All
What's your
right.
revenue goal? Right? It's growth conference. So I
Yeah.
took a deep breath and I went, 30 million. Like I set it out in the universe to people, 30 million is my revenue goal. And she looks at me and she goes, why not 300 million? So it turns out she built her own business
Yeah.
to 500 million. So for her, that 30 number was absurd. So
Yeah.
rules, you have to figure out where you're at and what you're thinking, I guess.
Yes. Yes. No, very good. It's funny you say you have a Mother Teresa quote. I actually have a board over there and it has a Mother Teresa quote on it. I can't
Oh,
read it exactly, but it's something along the lines of I used to pray for God to change things, but now
oh,
I pray for God to change me so I can go and change
yes,
things. And I just like that because it
I
really
love
comes
that.
down to like you need to be a person of action. You can't be like squeeze my hands harder and hope things turn out. You
Yeah,
as a leader, as a person, have to take action. Carl Polachuk, I don't know if you know him. He's an MSP
yeah, yeah.
advisor, but he would always say nothing happens by itself, right? Like you have to go make some action
And
happen.
aren't we
So
lucky? But aren't we lucky that we're not stuck sitting hoping something happens? We have the opportunity to try and make something happen. What a gift
yes,
that is. We have
yes,
agency.
very
Yeah.
much. Yeah. Don't look at the car and go, I hope it moves, right? Open it up, turn it on, and start driving the car, right? Like you got to take some
Yeah.
actions to do it. So excellent. Well, I want to make sure before we wrap up, can you
Yeah.
give us a preview of your Retail Now breakout? Again, it's called Built to Bend, an AI maturity model for VAR and ISV growth.
Yes, so I'm pretty excited about presenting it and also getting comments and feedback when we're in this session about it. So as I mentioned with the generative AI, we were doing some other before, but with the generative AI, it's been since as long as everybody else pretty much with generative AI. And we realized that incorporating it into the business like any other tool just wasn't quite cutting it. We needed something else. And as you've heard, like questioning and thinking, that's a big part of how we think about our culture at Tech House. And so what Built to Bend is talking about is what do we need organizationally to be able to thrive in the era of AI? Like what clearly we need tools and tools are built in, but organizationally, what does that mean? And that doesn't just mean do I need to hire someone with this job title? Do I need a, data scientist? I don't mean that specifically, but more along the lines of how does the team deal with the change that AI brings? What tools are necessary. And if you're saying, well, of course, I want the organization to be able to bend when AI comes in, yes, of course. But like, how do you make that happen? And what are the things that could cause barriers? And I will share with you some of the mistakes I've made
Okay.
and some of the things that we found help us to be able to bend so that we can adjust and adapt to the structure that works better in a world, age of intelligence, right? No more industrial age, but age of intelligence. And AI is deeply incorporated in what we do and what our customers need. So,
Got it. Great. So this is going to be a practical conversation
yes,
about things that you've done, things that you wish you would have done differently, and how folks
yes,
can go forward, if I'm understanding correctly.
yes. Hopefully, your journey will have less bumps for having listened to my journey.
Good. But I like that. And I guess for folks, who are listening, there's a lot. I remember on one of our community calls, a VAR said, I am sick and tired of hearing about AI. But it seems like
Oh,
people are sick and tired of hearing about the fear mongering or just this really broad conversation. But they want to hear the practical stuff about what works for an SMB tech provider and what doesn't, or what are the options or ranges or paths to go down. It sounds like that's what you're going to be doing. Again, we have other AI sessions as well, but it sounds like that's going to be kind of foundational to what you're doing, practical application of AI.
we are neither going to talk about what is the best model today nor prompt strategies.
Okay,
But
good.
as a leader, trying to figure out how is my team adapting and how does this change how we function as an organization, how we interact with our customers. That's what our focus is. Yeah.
Good. The slide that I use before I talk about AI for my presentations, I just did this earlier this week at a partner advisory conference. We're not talking about headless dancing robot dogs that sometimes you see, right, when people are talking about AI, and then people look at that and go, what am I supposed to do with that thing, right? Like that's not going to help my business at all. So Kathy, this has been great. Last question for you. So we've covered a lot. I'm
Yes.
curious, what would be your final advice for our audience? And the way that I always try to set this up is, let's say you're at retail now, you've got a ride share, you're sharing it with another RSPA member. They're new to the industry as a VAR, an MSP, or an ISV leader, and they're like, Kathy,
Okay.
what advice would you give me in the 3 minutes we have before we get to Harry Reid Airport?
Mm. Okay, 3 minutes. Well, I'm gonna make it a 6 minute ride
Okay,
because
go
I
ahead.
want to hear from you what you know too. So
All right.
I'll assume I have 3 minutes to share with them. So if they're new, that's a big differentiator. So if they're new, there's a lot of foundational business mistakes I made for the first 10 or 20 years. I mean, I still make some now, but I made a lot in the beginning. So I would probably just give you a list of some of those, like make sure the contract's signed before you start the work. I mean, just there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff you just learn starting out. You just whatever. And then, but speaking more specifically, if somebody's in the industry today, and is there something I feel like kind of special sauce-ish that's been helpful to me lately, which is probably more of the people that are in the room there. I'm guessing they've been at it a long time. I think the special sauce, and I know I'm speaking to what I'm going to talk about, but it really is how this understanding from an organizational perspective and the organizational tools we can put in place for AI adoption and success for us and our customers. I think that is really the game changer, to have an organization where everywhere in the organization, every SOP includes people making decisions. And so AI is augmenting those people making decisions. If we can kind of shift our focus to that, shift to that perspective on age of intelligence, that's what I think.
Excellent. That's very good. I also like how you, true to yourself, as you said earlier, I'm going to make sure half my conversation is me asking them questions too, because you want to
Yes.
you want to vacuum their brain as well. So
Yes, for sure.
I love it. That's excellent. So, well, that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to the RSP YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. Before we go, big thanks again to Kathy Durfee for sharing her wisdom with us today. Thanks also to RSP Marketing Director Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail technology ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.